Greetings, UUCUC. I'm excited to record the third installment of the Missing UU Service Auction virtual meals. I hope that you have enjoyed the journey so far through making my signature beetza pizza sauce and then applying it to your favorite pizza. On this third meal, we're going to close the loop and now make a fancy breaded protein dish that you can then top with the pizza sauce, and then hopefully eat if you've managed to reserve some bread dough with some fresh baked rolls or something like that. So I will first walk through the parts and pieces that we'll need for the menu laid out here in front of me, and then work through the various techniques. So here's pretty much everything we need for the cooking process. You'll see maybe largely in the back, I have 3 chicken breasts that we will eventually pound down and bread. I like to pound them in a Ziploc bag. That's why they're in there. That will be explained later. So we have the chicken. We have an egg wash and seasoned breadcrumbs for the breading, which will then, once applied to the chicken and set off onto the plate, be pan fried in my nice cast iron skillet. On that second flip, we will then top with pre-warmed beetza sauce here, as well as some freshly grated topping cheese. I'm using Parmesean, which is delicious. And we will get that second flip, put the heat in the pan, and send that into a hot oven. I'll have that staggered to make things come out nice and fresh, so that in the bottom of that hot oven, we'll actually be baking our rolls. Right now I've got my 2 dinner rolls proofing in little jars, and if we're lucky later, I'll be able to flip them directly onto the cooking stone just by kind of flipping like that. So we don't need these anymore. I'll set them aside. And now we'll get moving on the breaded chicken pieces. The other thing that I want to note is you're not limited here to using chicken. If you wanted to make it vegetarian, you definitely could. Eggplant parmesan is a thing, eggplant, zucchini, anything like that that you could slice into a steak, and then salt to draw out moisture would work out really nice. Another thing that we've used for this same dish that works really well is like the food co-op and many other places will serve frozen breaded like chicken thighs that or tenders that you can just cook in a toaster oven to defrost and then top that way, and you don't have to do any pan frying or breading or anything like that. So that's actually probably the easiest way to do it, and delicious whether or not you eat meat. But we'll go through the long process here. Basically here, the first step to get a nice even pan fry is to get the chicken down to even tenderness, right? And because it's, animal muscle, it's not gonna come out very uniform. So it's good to pound that down to a uniform thickness. So that I'll just do that here. I like to do it in a Ziploc bag where I've closed the entire bag except for just a little bit on one end to let the air out. That's how I like to do it, so that I keep all the potentially bacteria-laden chicken juices inside the bag, and then don't have any explosions. The other piece that's important is if you're going to pound meat down and you haven't done it before, and you have a device like this that has 2 sides, a smooth side and a pointy side, you want to make sure to use the smooth side for this technique, because if you hit it with the pointy side, you're going to chop a lot of holes in your bag, which will, 1, defeat the whole purpose of keeping the chicken juices inside the bag. It also will potentially introduce little bits of plastic into the food that you intend to eat, so I wouldn't recommend that. Just pound it on the flat side. Right, so basically you're just looking for a uniform thickness of the chicken breast, and I think about a 1/4 inch is where I'm going, because that's kind of about the thinnest piece of the meat naturally. So here we go. You want to be decisive, and you'll have a pretty good success. That's all it really takes to get that first one nice and smooth down. I'll repeat now with the second 2. Okay, so now we have our pounded uniform thickness chicken for nice even pan frying. In this case, what you see is what you get. So, you know, for Natalie and I, we're two, so we're only going to eat two of the chicken breasts. We don't need the third, so I'm just going to freeze one in a Ziploc bag so that we could, you know, do this as another meal. Okay, so the next step is to get a nice breading on the chicken. And with that, what you want to do is set up your breading station. And I like to work kind of in order. And so the goal here that's kind of important is that what you're trying to do is take the chicken, introduce it into the beaten egg wash here, so we don't need the fork anymore. That's just one beaten egg. So you want to do that. The egg will help the chicken and the breading stick, and then batter them in some seasoned breadcrumbs. What's important with this is your wet hand is going to stay very gummy, and if you can manage to have a dry hand as well, that will keep your chicken clear, and then you won't get a whole bunch of breadcrumbs stuck on your hand. So you just kind of want to think through how you want to do it. In this case, I'm going to start with my right hand will be my wet hand, and my left hand will be my dry hand. Right, so just drop the first chicken breast into the egg wash. You're not going to pick up all the egg, that's okay. And then it goes into the seasoned breadcrumbs, right? And you get kind of a rough coating so that it now becomes dry, right? And then at that point, you can take your dry hand and you can continue to liberally coat the chicken in the breadcrumbs. Right, so there we go. And then just take it to a pan to hold, right? So we've got one pan that way and the second, and the pan for the next chicken. And then we repeat. So that's the basic process of breading your chicken. If you're lucky, you've got one hand that you'll always have that's just full of breadcrumbs like this, and one hand that's relatively dry. Now, I like a lot of breadcrumbs on my chicken, and I didn't pick up all that's been, you know, coated with the chicken juices. So I'm just going to take some extra and lay them over the top, just like that. That's going to make sure, flip it over, and lay some extra here on the back as well. And that's just going to ensure that we get a nice amount of breadcrumbs for the batter. At this point, it's a good time to wash up a little bit and get ready for the pan frying. Okay, so now we're about ready to start pan frying the chicken. What I've done is I've taken 3/4 of my half stick of butter, so 3 tablespoons of butter, and gotten it to just starting to brown in my heavy cast iron skillet. So there's a surplus of butter there, but heck, it's a good meal, so just let it be over nice medium heat. And what I'm going to do is just introduce both of the chicken breasts to the pan and then let it sit without touching it for 3 to 5 minutes to get that bottom side to a nice golden brown, delicious texture. You know your pan's hot enough when you put them in if you just start to hear the chicken sizzle. If you don't hear anything, you probably didn't let it get hot enough, but you know there's not really too much you can do at that point. And then we're just going to let that cook down. What you want to make sure now is that you've got everything that you need for the next steps. So what we're going to do is maybe we'll need to add a little bit more butter to the pan, so you can have a few pats of butter at the ready if you think that your chicken is absorbing all your butter. You'll add that extra butter to the pan right before you're ready to flip it, and then I like to have both a pair of tongs and a spatula ready to get a nice flip with 2 devices, right? You also want your pre-warmed sauce and your cheese ready for topping. Now in this case, I don't have a spoon for my sauce, so I'm gonna get one over here off camera, right? So you wanna have the spoon ready, and I just add the cheese by hand. This is now hopefully the last time you have to touch the raw chicken. As I'm a food safety scientist, I would strongly encourage you all at this point to wash that one left hand that we used to put the chicken into the pan. And then we're good to go. If anywhere during the cooking process you notice that your butter is really starting to get very dark and you start to see a lot of smoke, you might want to turn your pan down. That's what I just did here, moving it down to heat 3 on my oven or stovetop because it's pretty hot. Okay, now it's been about 3 minutes. It looks like it started to change. It's not starting to smell quite as sizzly, so I think it's really gotten pretty far down with its cooking. You'll notice I just added 2 pats of butter. So what I'm going to do is give those a nice little swirl so that that liquefied butter is now distributed well in the pan. Once those 2 have melted, which we're about at, I will now flip the chicken, and it should look, giving a quick tilt so that it pools nicely. Right, so I can try to show that again. You want to pick up the chicken with your tongs. You want to pool the butter where you're about to deposit it, and then flip it over nicely. Now I'll do this fairly quickly, but at that time, right, you should have ended up, I'll try to get you a better view, with a nice golden brown breading. Right, so we're going to get that on both sides as this one cooks. Now this is where you top with your beetza sauce. So just a few liberal scoops right in the center, and then spread out right in the center. Right in the center, I like a lot of sauce. Depending on how wide your chicken is, you might not need that full cup, or is it? Yeah, you might not need that full amount of sauce, but you can just pack it on as best you can. All right, so now I've got a nice mound of sauce on top of my chicken, and then I top with my cheese. So just as much cheese as you can manage to heap on top of that nice warm beetza sauce is probably about the amount of cheese you want, because let's face it, melty cheese is delicious. Turn off your oven. All right, so now what you've got is nice melty cheese on top of beetza sauce, on top of chicken, and the bottom side is cooking. The next step is to get that into the oven so the cheese on the top melts. Okay, so I've taken a peek with my oven light on, and that cheese looks delicious, so I think the chicken parm is about ready to take out of the oven. We'll take it out and see how it looks. Make sure you include a hot pad because that handle is going to be hot at this point. So there you go. That looks pretty good. So one last critical step before you actually serve. I do food safety. We want to make sure that chicken is cooked properly, so I like to use a tip-sensitive digital thermometer. So it will just read right here. Insert that into each of the chicken breasts about in the center, and a couple points if you've got time. You're looking for 165 or above, but if you probably can't remember that, any thermometer you get is going to come with a card that's a nice, easy reference. Right, so just stick that in. Make sure you're getting into the chicken. I'm at like, what, 190, so I've gone plenty far for fully done chicken. And that one's at what, 186. So we're good to go. You shouldn't have any trouble with this technique of getting that chicken fully cooked, but you always want to make sure. All right, last step is getting ready for service. So in this case, just take out your chicken, stick it on a plate. I like the nice color contrast with our white bowls. I'll go grab one of those fresh baked rolls out of the oven. That is your third fairly delicious meal made stacking up various components from the last 2 nights. Enjoy and happy bidding. Hello, UUCUC. Natalie and I at least are eating our meal early because we had to make it before the service auction to get you this video, and we thought it was a good opportunity to be outside on our deck and enjoy the beautiful day.